The brilliant sunrise over the bustling city of Palo Alto was like any other that morning. Sundar Pichai, the globally admired CEO of Google and Alphabet, had just returned home from an intense 3-week trip to Asia, where he had spearheaded multiple innovative collaborations and keynote sessions. His heart was weary, though not from fatigue. His mind wandered often these days, not to business ventures or tech conferences, but to memories of the life that shaped him. After all, beneath the calm and focused demeanor of this corporate titan lived a humble man who never forgot his roots. One crisp spring morning, after a rare chance to sleep in, Sundar found himself leafing through an old leather-bound photo album tucked away in his library. It was a cherished relic from his days growing up in Chennai, India. Each page he turned unveiled photographs yellowed by time, scenes of modest birthdays, sun-drenched courtyards, school award ceremonies. But amidst these, one face always stood out: Meenakshi. She had been more than a caregiver. She had been his second mother. Meenakshi had come into Sundar's life when he was just 6 months old. A widow in her late 30s at the time, she had needed work, and Sundar's parents, struggling to balance their demanding schedules, had needed help with their new baby. From that first day, Meenakshi had loved and cared for Sundar as if he were her own son. She had taught him how to walk, comforted him through fevers, and told him bedtime stories of kings and wise sages that still inspired him. Even when Sundar left India to pursue his education at Stanford, and later to ascend the ranks of Silicon Valley, Meenakshi remained in his heart. She had been a constant presence in their family for over 2 decades. Now, as Sundar closed the album and stared at the ceiling, an unsettling question took root. Where was Meenakshi now? His parents had passed away several years ago, and in the whirlwind of his professional life, he had lost touch with many from his Chennai days. The thought gnawed at him all day. By evening, Sundar made a decision. He would find Meenakshi. If she were alive, he would ensure she lived in comfort and dignity. Armed with this resolve, Sundar reached out to an old family friend, Rajiv Menon, a retired professor who had known the Pichai family intimately. Rajiv was delighted to hear from Sundar after so long and agreed to help. "I will ask around, Sundar. I remember Meenakshi well. Give me a few days," he promised. True to his word, Rajiv called back 3 days later with news that shocked Sundar. "She's alive, Sundar, but..." Rajiv hesitated. "She is still working." "Working?" Sundar frowned. "At 85? "Yes," Rajiv continued, his voice laced with concern. "She works as a cleaner at a small clothing store on Mount Road. I spoke to the shop owner. She insisted on working, said she didn't want to be a burden to anyone." Sundar's heart sank. The thought of Meenakshi, who had once cradled him with such tenderness, now laboring in her twilight years, was unbearable. Without hesitation, he cleared his calendar and booked the earliest flight to Chennai. The journey felt endless. With each passing mile, Sundar's determination grew stronger. He vowed not to leave until he found her. Landing in Chennai, the familiar scent of jasmine, dust, and sea breeze enveloped him in nostalgia. Despite the late hour, Sundar's security detail arranged a discreet car, and by morning he was on Mount Road. The narrow street buzzed with life, vendors shouting, scooters weaving through traffic, and the aroma of sizzling dosas wafting through the air. Sundar's car stopped in front of a faded sign, Ravi's Family Garments. Taking a deep breath, Sundar entered the shop. It was modest, rows of colorful saris and men's shirts stacked on wooden shelves. A small bell chimed as the door swung open. The shopkeeper, a middle-aged man named Ravi, looked up from the counter. His eyes widened in recognition. "Mr. Pichai, welcome. How can I help you?" Sundar smiled politely. "I'm here to see someone, Meenakshi." A shadow of surprise and guilt crossed Ravi's face. "She's in the back, sir. Please, this way." Sundar followed him past the counters to a dimly lit storeroom, where an elderly woman was folding clothes with methodical precision. Her silver hair was neatly tied in a bun, her frail frame draped in a simple cotton sari. But despite the years, etched into her skin there was an unmistakable dignity in her posture. "Meenakshi Amma," Ravi called softly. She turned, her eyes still sharp but rimmed with age. The moment her gaze fell upon Sundar, time seemed to freeze. The folded garment slipped from her hands, her lips trembled. "Sundar? Is it really you?" Tears welled up in Sundar's eyes as he rushed forward and embraced her gently. "Yes, Amma, it's me." For several moments they stood there, the world outside forgotten. When they finally parted, Sundar held her hands tenderly. "Why didn't you tell me, Amma? You shouldn't be working." Meenakshi smiled faintly. "Beta, after your parents were gone, I didn't want to trouble you. You were busy building a life of greatness. I wanted to remain useful, not a burden." Sundar felt a lump in his throat. "You will never be a burden to me. You gave me so much love, Amma. Now it's my turn." He turned to Ravi. "She will not work another day here. I will make sure she is cared for." Ravi nodded, clearly moved by the scene unfolding before him. With great care, Sundar helped Meenakshi gather her things. The car ride back to a 5-star hotel was filled with stories and laughter, as if the years between them had melted away. But Sundar knew this was just the beginning. In his heart, he was already making grand plans. Meenakshi deserved the world, and more. By evening, he arranged for a private medical checkup to ensure she was healthy. He contacted his legal team and personal staff to begin preparations for her permanent care. But he knew that no financial gesture alone would suffice. What Meenakshi needed most was love, companionship, and dignity. As he sat by her bedside that night in the suite, watching her sleep peacefully for the first time in years, Sundar vowed silently, "I will give her back the life she once gave me." The next morning dawned with a golden hue spilling over the sprawling cityscape of Chennai. But in the suite of the luxurious Leela Palace Hotel, a different kind of light seemed to radiate, a warmth born from the reunion of two souls bound by love, time and gratitude. Sundar Pichai sat silently in a corner of the suite, sipping his masala chai, eyes fixated on the frail yet serene figure of Meenakshi Amma, who lay resting in a bed arranged with utmost care by the hotel staff. The events of the previous day still echoed in his mind. The chance rediscovery of the woman who had shaped his childhood, the heart-wrenching sight of her folding clothes in a dusty storeroom, her tearful yet dignified smile upon seeing him, and the bittersweet embrace that had rekindled a bond unbroken by years or distance. Sundar had not slept much, nor did he want to. His mind was abuzz with plans, no longer driven by corporate targets or shareholder expectations, but by a deeply personal mission to restore dignity, comfort, and joy to the woman who had once carried him through fevers, heartbreaks, and triumphs, with unwavering devotion. As the first rays of sunlight illuminated the suite, Meenakshi stirred gently, her eyes fluttering open to the unfamiliar surroundings. For a moment, confusion clouded her gaze, but when it met Sundar's smiling face, recognition dawned, followed by a mix of joy and disbelief. "Beta, I thought I was dreaming," she whispered, her voice frail yet filled with emotion. Sundar rose and knelt beside her, taking her hand in his. "No, Amma. This is real, and you are safe now. You will never need to work again." Tears welled up in her eyes, but Sundar gently wiped them away. "I have already arranged for doctors to check on you today. We will ensure you are healthy and comfortable. After that, I want to bring you home with me, to America, where you can live in peace and dignity." The notion seemed to overwhelm Meenakshi, her head shaking gently. "Beta, I never wanted to be a burden." Sundar's voice softened. "You were never a burden. You are family. And now it's my turn to care for you." Soon a team of the best doctors from Chennai arrived, discreetly ushered in through a private entrance. Over the next few hours, Meenakshi underwent a comprehensive checkup, blood tests, cardiac evaluations, bone density scans. Throughout it all, Sundar remained by her side, reassuring her with his calm presence. The doctors too seemed moved by the scene before them, one of the world's most powerful tech leaders attending to his childhood nanny, with a humility and tenderness rarely seen in boardrooms or headlines. After their assessments, the lead physician, Dr. Priya Menon, approached Sundar with her report. Mr. Pichai, Meenakshi Amma is remarkably resilient for her age. She does have some age-related concerns, osteoporosis, mild arthritis, and early signs of hypertension. But with proper care, nutrition, and rest, she can enjoy many more years. Relief washed over Sundar. Thank you, doctor. Please arrange for a personalized care plan. I want her to have everything she needs. While the medical team finalized their recommendations, Sundar took another important step. He contacted his legal advisors and personal staff in the U.S., instructing them to prepare the necessary immigration paperwork, medical clearances, and accommodations to bring Meenakshi to California. At the same time, he reached out to a trusted property manager in Chennai with an unusual request to purchase a small but beautiful home in the city under Meenakshi's name, so that she would always have a home of her own, a gesture of permanence and gratitude. Meanwhile, news of Sundar's presence in Chennai had begun to ripple through local media and tech circles, though the exact reason remained private. Sundar had instructed his team to maintain discretion. This was not a story for public relations or corporate image, but a deeply personal act of love. Later that afternoon, as the hotel suite buzzed with quiet activity, Sundar sat with Meenakshi once more. Over a simple lunch of soft idlis sambar and fresh coconut chutney, her favorite, he asked her gently about her life in recent years. Tears brimmed in her eyes as she spoke. After your parents were gone, I stayed in the family home for a while, but the house was sold. I had little savings. I could not trouble relatives. So I chose to work. The store owner was kind and I felt useful. I never imagined this day would come. Sundar's heart ached with each word. He realized that beyond providing financial security, he needed to restore her sense of purpose and dignity. Not just rescue her from labor, but offer her a life filled with meaning and joy. The following days unfolded with thoughtful precision. Sundar arranged for a personal caregiver, a kind and educated woman named Arti, to assist Meenakshi around the clock. He personally supervised the furnishing of her new Chennai home with modern amenities blended with familiar touches from her past: wooden swing chairs, brass lamps, framed photos from the old family album. Simultaneously, his legal team worked tirelessly to process the necessary documents for Meenakshi's travel and residency in the U.S. When the time came for Sundar to return to California, he promised Meenakshi he would be back in 2 weeks to personally escort her to her new life. Until then, Arti and a team of trusted staff would care for her. On the day of his departure, their parting was emotional. As he knelt before her once more, Meenakshi cupped his face with trembling hands. Beta, you have already given me more than I could ever dream. Please do not neglect your own health for me. Sundar smiled through misty eyes. Amma, you are my priority now. Boarding the flight back to San Francisco, Sundar sat in quiet reflection, the hum of the jet engines a soothing backdrop to his thoughts. In a world obsessed with innovation, profit margins, and digital futures, he had rediscovered a timeless truth: that the greatest acts of humanity were those rooted in love, gratitude, and the bonds we forge beyond the confines of ambition. He had climbed mountains of achievement, but this simple act of caring for Meenakshi felt more meaningful than any accolade or IPO. Yet he knew the journey was only beginning. In 2 weeks he would return, not as a CEO, but as a son fulfilling a long overdue promise. What Sundar did not yet know, however, was that this story, though deeply personal, would soon ripple far beyond the walls of his world. An unexpected twist awaited him, one that would touch millions and inspire a global conversation about kindness, duty, and the true measure of success. The next 2 weeks passed in a blur for Sundar Pichai. Back in Mountain View, while the world saw the image of a calm and visionary tech leader addressing Google's latest initiatives, inside his heart, Sundar remained tethered to Chennai. He checked on Meenakshi Amma every day, personally speaking with Arti, the caregiver, and ensuring the doctor's recommendations were meticulously followed. The new home he had purchased for her in Adyar, a quiet, green neighborhood of Chennai, was now fully furnished. Sundar had insisted on every detail being perfect. Custom-ordered the same rosewood swing that used to hang in their old family courtyard, replicated the exact brass puja lamps his mother used to light, and even tracked down a local artist to paint a large portrait of young Sundar sitting on Meenakshi's lap, a visual tribute to their timeless bond. The house had modern comforts, central air conditioning, an ergonomic recliner, a home entertainment system, but it still felt warm and familiar, like a space she would truly call her own. Yet despite these efforts, Sundar knew that something deeper was at play. It wasn't just about rescuing Amma from labor. It was about helping her rediscover joy, dignity, and a sense of belonging in this final chapter of her life. His legal team, having worked around the clock, managed to secure the necessary clearances for Meenakshi to travel to the U.S. They also ensured she would have full-time assistance, health care, and every possible support during her stay. As the day of his return to Chennai approached, Sundar felt a sense of anticipation unlike any he had felt before. Not the adrenaline of launching a product or the pride of addressing a conference, but a deep, soulful fulfillment that came from honoring a debt of love. The moment he landed back in Chennai, bypassing the press and corporate circles, he went straight to the Adyar home. It was late evening, the sun setting in hues of orange and crimson, when his car pulled up. The small crowd of neighbors and staff parted respectfully as Sundar stepped out, dressed simply in a kurta and jeans, no trace of corporate pomp. Inside, Meenakshi Amma sat in her favorite new swing, wearing a soft silk sari, her silver hair freshly oiled and combed, her eyes glistening with emotion. When she saw Sundar enter, her frail frame seemed to gather new strength. She rose slowly, and before he could speak, she embraced him tightly, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Beta, you kept your promise," and she whispered. Sundar held her close, his own voice choked with emotion. "Always, Amma. I always will." That evening, over a dinner of Meenakshi's favorite dishes, soft dosa, coconut chutney, avial, prepared by a personal chef Sundar had hired, they spoke for hours. Meenakshi shared stories of his childhood Sundar himself had forgotten, how as a child he had once tried to repair a broken radio, determined even then to understand how things worked, or how he would sit for hours under her lap listening to her tales of valor and wisdom. Sundar, in turn, shared his life in California, his family, and the values he had carried with him, values she had helped instill. Yet, amidst this reunion, something unexpected was brewing outside their walls. Word of Sundar's visit and his devotion to his old nanny had quietly spread, thanks to a discreet photo captured by a curious neighbor who had seen Sundar helping Meenakshi into the car days ago. The image, posted anonymously on a local Chennai Facebook group with the caption, "The CEO who never forgot his roots," had gone viral overnight. By the time Sundar was spending that heartfelt evening with Meenakshi, the post had already been picked up by national media and global outlets. Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn buzzed with admiration. In a world where success often means forgetting where you came from, Sundar Pichai is setting a new example. Tech bloggers, human interest journalists, and ordinary netizens alike were moved by the story. Headlines ranged from Google's CEO honors his childhood nanny to a billionaire's most important meeting. By the next morning, Sundar's communications team, initially blindsided, briefed him. The story had gone global. Major networks were requesting interviews. Influencers and thought leaders were praising his act of humility and kindness. Sundar, however, remained grounded. Speaking softly to his head of communications, he said, "This isn't a PR story. If asked, we will confirm the facts, but this is about Amma, not about headlines." He declined most interview requests, but agreed to a brief written statement. "I was raised by many hands, and Meenakshi Amma's love and guidance shaped much of who I am. It is my honor and responsibility to ensure she lives with the dignity she deserves." The statement only deepened public admiration. Meanwhile, Sundar focused on preparing Meenakshi for her journey. Though delighted, she was also apprehensive about flying for the first time in her life. Gently, Sundar reassured her, arranging for a dedicated nurse and translator to accompany them on the journey. He had booked a fully private cabin on one of the most comfortable airlines, ensuring Meenakshi's first experience of air travel would be one of ease, not stress. The night before their departure, Meenakshi sat on the swing in her new home, gazing at the stars through the open window. "Beta," she said softly, "I am not afraid, because you are with me." Sundar smiled, holding her hand. "Always, Amma." The next morning, the media thronged the Chennai airport, but thanks to meticulous planning, Sundar and Meenakshi entered through a private terminal. Still, a few candid images of Sundar walking beside his elderly nanny, hand in hand, would later become iconic, symbols of humility, gratitude, and the true meaning of success. As the aircraft soared above the Indian Ocean, Sundar watched Amma with tender eyes. She marveled at the clouds, the vast expanse of the sky, like a child seeing the world anew. In that moment, Sundar realized, this was not just a journey across continents. It was a journey across lifetimes, a chance to repay love with love, dignity with dignity. As the plane began its descent into San Francisco, Sundar knew that Meenakshi's story was only beginning in this new chapter. But what neither of them knew yet was that their story was continuing to inspire millions across the world. Sparkling conversations in corporate boardrooms, classrooms, and homes about the value of gratitude, compassion, and remembering those who shaped our lives. The soft hum of the plane's engines provided a soothing background as Sundar Pichai looked out of the window, watching the sparkling lights of the San Francisco Bay come into view beneath the aircraft. Beside him, Meenakshi Amma dozed lightly, her head resting on a plush pillow, her small hand still clutching Sundar's. The long journey from Chennai had gone smoothly, thanks to the careful planning and constant attention from the crew and the medical team Sundar had arranged. The elderly woman had marveled at everything: the moving walkway at the Chennai airport, the luxury of the private cabin, the strange but delightful Western food served on board, and the kind faces of the attendants who treated her like royalty. Each time Meenakshi expressed disbelief that such a life awaited her, Sundar would simply smile and say, "You deserve it, Amma. This is just the beginning." But even as the aircraft prepared to land, neither of them fully grasped how much their simple story of love and gratitude had captured the world's imagination. As they touched down at San Francisco International Airport, the welcome was discreet. Sundar had specifically requested privacy, knowing Meenakshi would be overwhelmed by the flash of cameras or the glare of media attention. A private SUV with tinted windows waited airside, bypassing the terminal crowds. Sundar, dressed simply once again in jeans and a cardigan, guided Meenakshi carefully into the vehicle, her eyes wide with wonder at the gleaming city skyline she glimpsed through the windows. As they drove toward Sundar's sprawling estate in Palo Alto, Meenakshi couldn't help but express her astonishment. "Beta, I remember the small house in Chennai where you would sit with your books and dreams. Look at this world you have built." Sundar chuckled gently. "It was built because of the values you gave me, Amma. Without your love, none of this would matter." Arriving at Sundar's home, a spacious yet warm and tastefully designed residence surrounded by lush gardens, Meenakshi was greeted with gentle reverence. Sundar's wife, Anjali, had prepared a traditional welcome with flowers, diyas and sandalwood paste honoring Amma's arrival. Their two children, who had only heard stories of great Amma till now, greeted her shyly, soon warming to her gentle smile and soft, weathered hands. It was a scene of profound joy, a reunion across time and generations. Sundar had also arranged a fully furnished suite within the house for Meenakshi, designed not merely for comfort, but with heartfelt details: a carved wooden swing facing the garden, soft Indian textiles, familiar scents of jasmine and sandalwood, and a corner adorned with framed photographs from Sundar's childhood. That evening, the family gathered around the dining table, enjoying a lovingly prepared meal of South Indian delicacies, as Meenakshi shared stories and laughter flowed freely. It was a night of healing, of bridging the distance between past and present. Yet outside the quiet of Sundar's home, the world was ablaze with their story. The photo of Sundar helping his elderly nanny through the airport had now been picked up by global news outlets, BBC, CNN, Reuters. Social media continued to erupt with praise. A CEO worth billions, but his greatest wealth is his heart, read one viral post. Thought leaders shared reflections on humility and gratitude. Corporate leaders discussed Sundar's example in board meetings. Educators used the story to teach children about values. By the next morning, YouTube Sundar and Dama trended across platforms. The unexpected global impact surprised even Sundar's seasoned communications team. Interview requests poured in from the world's most prestigious media outlets, but Sundar remained true to his original stance. This is Amma's story. It's a personal act of gratitude, not a campaign. However, he did agree to one carefully written blog post on Google's official platform, sharing the essence of the story in his own words. In that blog, which went viral within hours, Sundar wrote, "In a world driven by technology and progress, it is important to remember the human hands that shape us. Meenakshi Amma cared for me when I was most vulnerable and gave me love that transcended duty. Bringing her home was not charity. It was a debt of love. I share this only in the hope that we all remember and honor the unseen heroes in our lives." The post touched millions, sparking an international conversation about caring for elders, the dignity of aging, and the true meaning of success. Stories began to emerge of other individuals inspired to reconnect with those who had shaped their lives: former teachers, nannies, housekeepers, distant relatives. Corporate leaders began discussing new initiatives for elder care within their organizations. It was as though Sundar and Meenakshi's simple story had unlocked a wave of collective empathy across the world. Meanwhile, within the walls of Sundar's home, life was settling into a new rhythm. Every morning, Sundar would spend time with Meenakshi, listening to her stories and seeking her wisdom before heading to work. The bond between Meenakshi and Sundar's children deepened rapidly. She began teaching them simple Tamil rhymes, telling them the same fables that once inspired Sundar. Even Anjali remarked one evening, "You brought Amma home, but I feel as though you have brought a piece of your soul back with her. The children are learning things we could never teach them." Meenakshi too began to thrive. Under constant care, proper nutrition, and surrounded by love, her health improved. The sparkle in her eyes returned. Her laughter rang louder. One afternoon, sitting with Sundar in the sun-drenched garden, she said softly, "Beta, I never imagined seeing this day. Not only for myself, but seeing the kind of man you have become, not just successful but good." Sundar, moved beyond words, replied, "I am who I am because of you, Amma." But fate still had more in store. Within weeks, Sundar began receiving invitations, not just for interviews, but to speak at global forums on the topic of gratitude and the dignity of aging. Governments and NGOs reached out, asking for support in launching elder care initiatives. In a candid conversation with his leadership team at Google, Sundar said, "Technology shapes the future, but humanity must shape how we use it. If this story has taught us anything, it's that kindness must be at the core of progress." He proposed an internal initiative, a global program focused on elder support and intergenerational mentorship, starting first with Google employees and expanding to communities worldwide. The initiative, later known as Project Roots, became one of the most talked about CSR efforts in Silicon Valley. As the weeks turned into months, Meenakshi's story continued to inspire millions, but inside Sundar's home, the greatest joy remained simple: daily meals with Amma, evening walks in the garden, and the comforting presence of a love that had endured across decades. For Sundar Pichai, no award, no stock price, no conference keynote could compare to this quiet fulfillment. He had built a company that touched billions, but in honoring Meenakshi, he had built something even more precious, a legacy of gratitude and humanity that would inspire the world for years to come. As the golden days of California summer unfolded, life in Sundar Pichai's household took on a rhythm both new and deeply familiar, as if time had gently folded upon itself to bring forth an old melody in a modern world. Every morning, sunlight would stream through the wide bay windows of their Palo Alto home, illuminating the cheerful sight of Meenakshi Amma sitting in her garden swing, a warm shawl draped over her shoulders, her eyes glistening with quiet contentment, as she watched Sundar's children chase butterflies or listen intently to her tales of wisdom from another era. The Pichai residence, a place that once echoed with the hum of business calls and innovation meetings, now carried an additional heartbeat, one of generational love, gratitude, and simple joys. For Sundar, these mornings had become sacred. Regardless of the pressures awaiting him at Google headquarters, he carved out time each day to sit with Amma, sipping masala chai prepared exactly to her liking, the rich aroma filling the air as they conversed softly in Tamil. These conversations were no longer just about their shared past. Amma asked about Sundar's challenges, encouraged him to lead with integrity, and often reminded him with a twinkle in her eye that kindness would always be more important than code. Yet outside the warm cocoon of their home, the ripples of Sundar's act of love continued to spread far and wide. The global response had been unprecedented, not because the world was unaccustomed to stories of success, but because it was rare to witness someone at the pinnacle of global influence pause and honor the invisible hands that had shaped them. The Sundarandama hashtag remained a beacon of inspiration, now spawning thousands of similar stories from around the world. Elderly caregivers, forgotten teachers, old housekeepers, stories poured in from people moved to reconnect, to express long overdue gratitude. The Project Roots initiative Sundar had proposed at Google blossomed into a global movement. Within weeks, Google's campuses across continents hosted intergenerational events where employees were encouraged to bring their parents, grandparents, and mentors to share their stories. Sundar personally attended the first such gathering, in Mountain View, walking onto the stage not as a CEO but as a humble son. The standing ovation that greeted Meenakshi Amma as she was gently escorted to a seat of honor on the stage would become one of the most heartwarming moments in the company's history. During his address, Sundar spoke with quiet conviction. In the race for innovation, let us not forget the wisdom of those who walked before us. Technology may change the world, but love and gratitude give it meaning. My journey here is not just mine. It belongs to every person who shaped me, starting with Amma. The hall resounded with applause. Many in the audience moved to tears. Media outlets worldwide carried clips of the event, further fueling the movement. Soon, Project Roots partnered with NGOs across Asia, Africa, and Europe to fund elder care centers, launch mentorship programs, and raise awareness about the dignity of aging. Governments and corporate leaders reached out to Sundar, seeking guidance on embedding these values within public policy and corporate culture. Though naturally private, Sundar recognized that if his story could inspire lasting change, it was worth embracing this unexpected spotlight. At home, life with Amma grew richer with each passing day. She quickly became beloved not only within the household but across Sundar's extended circle of friends, colleagues, and neighbors. Visiting dignitaries, entrepreneurs, and even celebrities who came to meet Sundar often found themselves captivated by her gentle wisdom and sparkling humor. One evening, after hosting a dinner with visiting global leaders, Sundar found Amma in the garden surrounded by guests who sat cross-legged on the grass, listening with rapt attention as she recounted an ancient Tamil folk tale about the power of humility. Later that night, Sundar chuckled softly. "Amma, I think you should be the one giving TED Talks, not me." She smiled and patted his hand. "Beta, stories have power, just like actions. You must always remember that." Yet amidst this growing public impact, Sundar remained most committed to one quiet mission, giving Amma the life of comfort and dignity she had long denied herself. He engaged the best doctors to monitor her health, arranged for personal yoga and physiotherapy sessions adapted to her age, and even designed a small temple room within their home where she could meditate and perform her daily prayers. Beyond material care, Sundar also ensured that Amma remained connected to her roots. Regular video calls were arranged with her old friends from Chennai. A visiting Tamil musician gave her private veena lessons, rekindling her love for music. One particularly emotional day, Sundar surprised her with a visit from Rajiv Menon, the retired professor who had first helped him locate her. The reunion between the two old friends was a tearful one, with Rajiv exclaiming, "Meenakshi, you have become an icon for the world." To which Amma humbly replied, "I only ever wanted to be there for my children. The world is simply reminding me of that love." As months passed, the seasons changed, but the love within Sundar's home only deepened. Festivals were celebrated with newfound joy. Diwali lights gleamed brighter. Pongal feasts were more heartfelt. During one such festive evening, as Sundar sat beside Amma watching his children perform a simple dance for the family, he found his eyes welling with emotion. Turning to her, he whispered, "Amma, I could never repay you fully, but I hope I have made you proud." Placing her hand on his cheek, Amma said softly, "Beta, you repaid me the moment you remembered. Love needs no calculation. You have honored me beyond words." What Sundar did not yet know was that fate still held further turns. A global leadership summit on elder care and gratitude had now invited him to deliver a keynote, a rare platform bringing together world leaders, humanitarians and visionaries, and even more surprising, the organizers had requested that if possible, Meenakshi Amma herself attend as a guest of honor. The thought of Amma's story continuing to touch lives on such a grand scale filled Sundar with humility and quiet determination. Together they would soon embark on yet another journey, not for fame or recognition, but to remind the world that amid all its progress, it must never forget to honor its past. The crisp autumn air of California now carried a different meaning. For Sundar Pichai and his family, life had found a beautiful rhythm in their home, one enriched daily by the quiet, wise presence of Meenakshi Amma, who had gone from a hidden figure in Sundar's past to a beloved matriarch within the household and a global symbol of gratitude beyond it. Every morning, Amma would still awaken early, her inner clock untouched by the trappings of modern life, and begin her gentle rituals, lighting the small oil lamp in her private temple room, humming ancient Tamil bhajans, and offering her prayers. Sundar, despite his high-profile role and packed schedule, continued his daily tradition of spending at least an hour each morning with Amma, sipping freshly brewed masala chai, and speaking about everything from family matters to the latest advancements in artificial intelligence. To outsiders, it was an extraordinary sight, a man helming one of the world's largest tech empires grounded so deeply in these simple, timeless moments. But to Sundar, these hours were not an obligation. They were the very core of life's meaning. Beyond the household, the public resonance of Amma's story had grown far beyond anything Sundar had imagined. The upcoming Global Leadership Summit on Elder Care and Gratitude, hosted in Geneva under the auspices of the United Nations, had now extended an official invitation to both Sundar and Meenakshi Amma. The summit aimed to address the growing global need for elder support in an aging world. But this year, inspired by Amma's story, it would carry an even deeper theme: honoring those who shaped us. Initially hesitant about thrusting Amma into such a global spotlight, Sundar sat with her one crisp afternoon beneath the golden leaves of their garden and explained the invitation. "Amma, they want to hear our story, not for fame, but so others may learn and remember the importance of gratitude." Amma, ever humble, placed her hand on his. "Beta, if my story can help even one child remember an elder with love, then I will go." With that quiet blessing, the decision was made. Preparations began with care and thoughtfulness. Sundar ensured that every detail of Amma's travel would mirror the comfort and dignity she now enjoyed daily. Private medical escorts, the most comfortable accommodations, and a carefully tailored travel itinerary that would allow her to rest well. The summit's organizers were equally respectful, offering Amma the highest honors and ensuring she would not be burdened by excessive demands. As the day of departure approached, excitement mingled with a sense of profound purpose within the Pichai household. Anjali prepared Amma's travel wardrobe, elegant yet simple silk saris in her favorite earthy tones, while Sundar personally curated a small photo album for Amma to share with summit attendees if she wished, featuring moments from their life together. Even the children, now deeply attached to their great Amma, prepared handmade cards and drawings for her journey. The day of their flight to Geneva dawned crisp and clear. At San Francisco International Airport, private arrangements once again ensured that Amma was spared the public frenzy that often accompanied Sundar's appearances. Yet a small group of well-wishers, elder advocates, members of Google's Project Roots initiative, and close friends gathered quietly to offer blessings. Amma, serene and composed, greeted each with folded hands and a gentle smile. Sundar, walking beside her with quiet pride, knew that this journey carried more than personal meaning. It was a message to the world that true success was measured not in accolades or wealth, but in how we honored those who nurtured us. The flight to Geneva was seamless. Amma marveled once more at the clouds outside the window, her eyes sparkling with the same childlike wonder that had moved Sundar months ago on their flight from Chennai. Between periods of rest, Sundar read to her excerpts from the summit program and shared messages from around the world, letters from school children, notes from corporate leaders, even poems written by elderly residents in homes inspired by Amma's story. Upon arrival in Geneva, the reception was nothing short of extraordinary. Summit organizers greeted them personally at the private terminal, and Amma was escorted with the dignity befitting her role as a symbol of global gratitude. The city itself seemed to have embraced her story. Banners outside the summit venue bore the words "Honoring Those Who Shaped Us," beside a gentle image of Amma's smiling face. Inside the grand conference hall, where world leaders and thought pioneers had gathered, a palpable sense of anticipation filled the air. Sundar was slated to deliver the keynote address, but the most awaited moment was the special session titled "A Conversation with Meenakshi Amma." As they entered the hall on the day of the session, the audience rose in a standing ovation, a gesture of profound respect that moved Amma deeply. Seated gracefully on stage, with Sundar by her side, she addressed the audience through a translator, her voice steady and wise. "I am not an important person," she began. "I am only a nanny who loved a child. But love leaves deep roots. And when that child remembers you with love, that is life's greatest blessing." Her words, simple and pure, resonated across the room. Delegates wiped away tears, and the translation screens lit up with messages of thanks in multiple languages. When Sundar rose to deliver his keynote, he spoke not from prepared notes, but from the heart. "In this age of constant innovation, we must not forget the timeless wisdom of those who shaped us. Amma taught me the value of humility, resilience, and love. Lessons that no technology can replace. Our journey is not unique. All of us owe debts of love. If we can honor those debts, we can create a more compassionate world." His words were met with thunderous applause. The session's impact was immediate and profound. By the close of the summit, multiple international organizations pledged to adopt Project Roots-inspired elder care initiatives. Corporate leaders committed to integrating elder mentorship programs. Several governments proposed policies to enhance the dignity and care of their aging populations. Back in their Geneva hotel that evening, as the family gathered for a quiet dinner, Amma looked at Sundar with a mixture of joy and gentle teasing. "Beta, I never thought I would speak before. Kings and ministers, you have taken this old nanny on quite a journey." Sundar laughed softly, holding her hand. "Amma, you deserve the world, and this is only the beginning." Little did they know that the summit's impact would soon ripple even further, setting into motion a global movement that would forever change how the world viewed its elders, and the timeless debt of love we all owe to those who raised us. The brisk winds of Geneva whispered through the ancient streets long after the grand hall of the Global Leadership Summit had emptied, but their echoes carried something far more enduring than any applause, the beginning of a worldwide awakening. In homes, offices, and governments across the globe, Sundar Pichai and Meenakshi Amma's story had sparked not just admiration, but tangible action. News agencies had covered their appearance in depth. The viral footage of Amma's gentle words, now translated into dozens of languages, her simple wisdom resonating across continents. In India, new elder care centers were inaugurated under government initiatives directly inspired by Amma's example. In Silicon Valley, corporations rushed to adopt Project Roots as a model for fostering compassion within fast-paced corporate cultures. School curriculums in several countries added modules on intergenerational respect and the value of gratitude, using Sundar's story as a case study. But back in the privacy of their Geneva hotel suite, amid all the media frenzy and institutional accolades, Sundar and Amma remained unchanged. Two souls bound by a love that needed no headlines, no awards. As they prepared to return home, Amma expressed only one wish: to visit a small ancient temple on the outskirts of the city that she had heard about from the local Indian community. Sundar, ever attentive, arranged the visit with utmost care. In the quiet sanctum of the temple, surrounded by flickering oil lamps and the scent of sandalwood, Amma knelt in prayer. Sundar watched in reverence as she whispered her gratitude, not for fame, but for the simple gift of being reunited with a son in spirit, if not by blood. Outside, the media awaited yet another glimpse of the humble Nanny who had captured the world's heart. But Sundar ensured their return to the airport remained a private affair. On the flight back to California, the family reflected quietly on the whirlwind journey. Amma held Sundar's hand and said softly, "Beta, we must remember, all this attention is not for us to enjoy but to inspire others. You must carry this forward." Sundar nodded solemnly. "I promise, Amma. This is only the beginning." True to his word, upon their return, Sundar accelerated the global rollout of Project Roots. Leveraging Google's vast resources and Sundar's personal networks, the initiative expanded to include partnerships with leading NGOs, elder care organizations, and universities. Google's AI teams began developing tools to help elderly individuals connect more easily with family, access health services, and record their life stories for future generations. A digital way to preserve the wisdom of those who had built the foundations of the present. Within 6 months, over 50 major corporations and government bodies worldwide had adopted policies or programs inspired by Project Roots, reaching millions of elders globally. Sundar also established the Meenakshi Amma Global Fund for Dignity in Aging, personally endowing it with a significant contribution. The fund provided grants for grassroots elder care initiatives, scholarships for caregivers, and public campaigns to combat ageism and promote respect for the elderly. Yet, amid this vast global impact, it was the personal moments that remained most precious to Sundar. Life at home continued to be enriched by Amma's presence. She remained the heart of the household, her wisdom now influencing not only Sundar's family but also his leadership. His speeches, once dominated by innovation and growth, now wove in deeper themes of compassion, gratitude, and the human soul behind technology. His colleagues and employees noticed the transformation. Sundar was still the visionary CEO the world admired. But now, there was an added warmth in his leadership, a grounding presence that inspired loyalty and respect at an even greater level. And whenever he spoke of leadership in public forums, he would often say, "If you want to know the measure of a person, see how they honor those who shaped them. We all stand on the shoulders of giants, sometimes quiet giants like a nanny, who gave all her love." As the first anniversary of Amma's arrival in the U.S. approached, the family planned a quiet celebration. Sundar personally supervised every detail. Amma's favorite jasmine flowers were flown in, a traditional South Indian feast was prepared, and the children rehearsed a simple musical performance for their beloved great Amma. On the evening of the celebration, friends, neighbors, and close colleagues gathered in the Pichai home, now adorned with soft lights and garlands. The event was private, free from the media glare, honoring Amma's wish to keep her personal joy away from the spotlight. During the evening, as Sundar rose to speak, his voice trembled with emotion. "A year ago, I found Amma still working, unseen and uncelebrated. Today she is not only honored by the world but remains the heart of our family and an inspiration to millions. This journey has taught me that true success is not what we build with our minds, but what we preserve in our hearts. When Amma spoke, her words were simple yet profound. I am an old woman who was loved by a child. That child has given me back more love than I ever imagined. My only prayer is that every child remembers those who shaped them, and that the world remembers to honor its elders with kindness and respect. The room was silent, moved beyond words. Many wept openly, touched by the purity of her message. Later that night, as the family gathered alone, Amma looked at Sundar and whispered, "Beta, my life is full now. I could not have asked for more. Promise me that even after I am gone, you will keep reminding the world of this truth." With tears in his eyes, Sundar promised, "Always, Amma. Your voice will live on." In the months that followed, Amma's health began to wane, a natural process for one who had given so much for so long. Yet she remained surrounded by love, cared for with the dignity and devotion that Sundar had vowed to provide. When the day finally came that Amma left this world, she did so peacefully, with Sundar holding her hand, the entire family by her side. In her final moments, she smiled softly and whispered, "I am proud of you, Beta." Sundar kissed her forehead gently and whispered back, "I love you, Amma. Thank you for everything." The world mourned her passing. Tributes poured in from global leaders, corporate giants, and ordinary citizens alike. Yet for Sundar, the true tribute was the life she had lived and the love she had given. In the years that followed, Sundar continued to honor Amma's legacy. Project Roots grew into one of the most influential global movements for elder care and intergenerational compassion. The Meenakshi Amma Global Fund supported thousands of initiatives worldwide, and every year on Amma's birthday, Sundar would light a small lamp in her memory, surrounded by his family, sharing her stories with his children so they would never forget. For the world, Sundar Pichai remained a symbol of visionary leadership. But for those who knew the full story, he was something greater. A son who had remembered, a leader who had honored, and a man who had shown that amid all the brilliance of technology, the greatest act of progress is to never forget the love that made us who we are.